Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into this really cool illusion that proves your brain doesn't just hear the world, it actually helps create it. It's called the Ganong Effect, and it shows how what you know can literally change what you hear. So let's jump right in.
So let me just start by asking you a question. Think about it. When you listen to someone talk, do you think your ears are basically acting like a perfect microphone? Just capturing sound exactly as it is and shipping it off to your brain?
Right, so the way we usually think about it is pretty simple. Sound waves come in, hit your eardrum, and your brain decodes them. It's like a one-way street, right? From the world, straight into your mind. But as we're about to see, it's not nearly that simple. Your brain isn't just listening in, it's actively shaping the conversation.
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to start with how our brains handle sound at a super basic level. It turns out your brain is way more than just a receiver. It's like an active organizer, constantly sorting all the sounds you hear into these neat little boxes. And there's a name for this whole organizing thing. It's called categorical perception. For example, think about the sounds d, like in dog, and t, like in top. Now, acoustically speaking, the big difference between them is just this tiny delay. We're talking milliseconds in when your vocal cords start to vibrate. So you can actually create this whole smooth spectrum of sounds that goes from a perfect duh all the way to a perfect tuh. But, and this is the crazy part, we don't hear it that way. We don't hear that smooth blend. Instead, our brain just forces a choice. It's got to be one or the other. It's either a duh or it's a tuh, period. And this graph, this shows that choice perfectly. You can see that as the sound itself physically changes, that's the bottom axis, our perception of it doesn't just glide along with it. Nope. Instead, for a good while, pretty much everyone hears a clear duh. But then you hit this invisible line, this phonetic boundary, and bam, it just snaps. Suddenly, everyone's hearing a tuh. There is no middle ground.
So here's the key takeaway. The sound itself in the real world is this smooth, gradual thing. But what we experience in our heads, it's a hard switch, an instant flip from one category to another. So our brains are literally creating these distinct categories that, well, they don't really exist in the sound wave itself.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's probably just a language thing, right? Something we learn. Well, check this out. Researchers found the exact same thing happening in babies who are way too young to talk. And get this, they even found it in chinchillas. So what does that tell us? It suggests this isn't about language at all. It's a really deep, fundamental way our brains are wired to process sound. It was there before we even had words. So if this is our brain's basic hardware, what happens when we install the software of language on top of it? Okay, so we've established this really basic, almost animal-like hearing system. The big question then becomes, what happens when you throw a uniquely human skill, our massive vocabulary, into the mix?
And that is exactly the brilliant question that a researcher named W.F. Ganong asked back in 1980. He thought, okay, if our brains are already forcing sounds into these categories, does our knowledge of actual words maybe, I don't know, influence which category we pick? And the experiment he came up with was just genius. So first, he cooks up a sound that's right on that dividing line we talked about, a sound that is perfectly ambiguous, exactly halfway between a da and a ta. Then he took that one single sound and just dropped it into two totally different contexts. And all he did was ask people, so what did you hear? And you can see the setup right here. It's super clever. So he'd take that mushy in-between sound and stick it in front of the letters ash. Now, if your brain decides to hear it as a D, you get the word dash, a real word. But if it hears a T, you get tash, which is not a word. Then he'd flip it. He took that exact same sound and put it before ask. This time, hearing a D gives you dask, again, not a word. But hearing a T gives you task, a real word. And remember, the key here is that the sound at the beginning is identical in every single case. The only thing that changes is what comes after it. So, what happened? Well, the results were huge. I mean, they were so groundbreaking that they named the whole phenomenon after him. It's called the Ganong Effect. And this is the moment where your brain's internal dictionary basically starts acting like an editor for what your ears are hearing. What he found was a totally clear, consistent bias. People's perception wasn't random at all. That ambiguous sound was consistently pulled, or you could say biased, towards whichever pronunciation would create a real English word.
I mean, the original paper puts it best. People's knowledge of words of English influenced which speech sound they heard, even when the acoustic signal is the same. Think about that. The exact same acoustic signal was heard as two different sounds, all depending on whether it helped form a word you already knew.
And that, right there, is the Ganong effect. When faced with an unclear sound, your brain doesn't just flip a coin. It cheats. It's like your brain peeks at its own dictionary and gives your perception a little nudge, pushing it towards the sound that actually makes sense, the one that creates a word it recognizes. So, what's the big picture here? What does this tell us about how our brains work? Well, for one, it means we can just toss that old brain as a microphone idea right out the window. It's got to be replaced with something way more active, way more dynamic. See, this whole thing really highlights two different ways our brains process the world around us. You've got bottom-up processing. That's just the raw data coming in from your senses, the actual sound waves hitting your eardrum. But the Ganong effect, that is a textbook example of top-down processing. This is when all your higher-level knowledge, like your vocabulary, what you expect to hear, flows down and actually changes your basic perception of what's coming in. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that your brain is not a passive recorder. It's an active, predictive machine. It's constantly making its best guess about what's going on, using everything it already knows to fill in the gaps and build a story that makes sense. What you perceive isn't just reality. It's reality edited by your own expectations. And that just leaves us with one last, kind of mind-bending thought. We've seen how the Ganong effect shows your brain filling in the blanks with sound to make sense of things. So it really makes you wonder, what other gaps in your perception, in what you see, what you feel, even what you believe, is your brain filling in for you right now without you even noticing? Thanks for watching.